Welcome to this session. I think this is the fifth session, and we're going to take on a question which, for the entrepreneur, is usually a very difficult one. It's not so easy to determine. It's the question of what should the customer pay for the product or the service. First of all, we have to remark that when you have competitors and you're in an ordinary competitive situation, the price of a product is most often, of course, determined partly or to a great extent by your competitors. You cannot enter a market without taking into account what the competing prices are. For the entrepreneur that enters with a new product in a new market, that may not be the case. But you have to consider then competing situations, not by some competing product, but by the old way of doing things. And then the question is, of course, the value of the first, or you could say, what will your customer save by using your product? That is the same as the value of the first or value of the pain by the customer, especially if you're in a B2B situation where your customer is a business organization instead of a private consumer. So, what should it be? Should it, if let us say your customer will save something like $100, no, $100,000 on your invention, whether it's a system or a product or a service or a combination, what should you charge? Should you charge 90% of the customer saving, 50%, or 10%, or something in between? My recommendation is that you consider taking 10% of the customer savings. By setting the sales price this low, you you will compensate, of course, for the risk involved in buying from a startup company. And you also have to think of your sales process. If you have a case where you can get the customer reasonably to agree on that he will save 100% or let's say his savings are 100%, and your product costs 10%, and it's considerable sums, you have a very good sales argument. And you could think of the situation if you do not succeed in selling this, but can reasonably prove the savings of the company. You have a good grounds for a second try at the sales process. That is going to some higher level in the organization and prove that the buyer that rejected you did not do his best to save money for the company by wasting such a chance of earning 100% a year for an outlay of only 10% of the sum. Well, that's my recommendation in that order of magnitude. It could be, of course, as much as 20%, but not 50% and not above 50%, at least. Um, then you also had the consideration that, and this is somewhat dependent. We haven't talked about the price level. The price level question is depending on your product. Is your product a new gadget, like something like this, that does some work a good deal better at the price of, let's say, $100? Or is it a computer system, a complex computer system that would save thousands of dollars per year for your customer? Or would it be a big thing like a oil drilling rig that costs hundreds of millions of dollars? The sales process and the business model is often very different for a small cost product or for a big installation. And if it's as a simple inventive screwdriver, it's at the cost of $10 or so. You have different ways of selling it, and the price sensitivity is very different, and also the marketing part, the sales part of the cost of the price is also possibly larger for some kind of products than for others. Generally speaking, for the simpler products, you always have the question of the price quality level. You can, in any price situation, you could say you have a premium quality and a premium price. You have a middle price and middle quality, and you have a low price or economy price with the corresponding um, simplicity of the product. And in some cases, you have also the sale of the basic product into different markets, and different markets have different pay capabilities. So in some cases, it might be an interesting thing for you to consider having different versions of your basic product tailored to different price levels for different markets. Let us say you have a health gadget, and a health gadget can be sold to the public, the individual consumers, and or to medical institutions or health institutions or training institutions. And you could expect that the pay that the price should probably be lower in the consumers market than in the institutional market. So then it would be tempting to try to sell it in both markets at different prices, of course, with some more gadgets and some more extra things added onto it for the institutional market. This is very important in business, and if you're selling ice cream, of course, the sales location is of utmost important. If you can get everyone would expect an ice cream to be more costly at the beach than close to the ice cream factory. So there are a lot of considerations as to the type of product you have the price level of the product, the sales process, and the paying will of the customer, and the first value or the paying value of the product. So much for those considerations. You have also to consider the business model for this. In some cases, typically in modern times, you would have, or let me say the following: as the industrialization in the world has taken a higher level, and more industries are getting global and worldwide, the larger the proportion of the sales price is represented by the marketing and sales cost. And if you have a small item that is going to be exported, or a simple item that's going to be exported, and you're the manufacturing site, you have to consider the markup at the various levels of organizations required to do the export. That is, if you are the factory, you would like to have something like a 50% at least production margin, and in the worst case, with lots of intermediate steps or intermediate channels, or what should we call it, between you and the final end user customer in a different country. The situation could be that you would like to simplify your own sales organization by selling your product to an exporter that would like to have a margin of 10%, or anywhere, but let's suppose 10%. The exporter would export the product to some importer agency in various countries, and the importing agency would require something from 2 to 5 or 6% gross margin on their part. And they would sell the product to distributors, wholesale distributors in each country. And they might like to see a gross margin of 30%, and then the distributors, of course, sells to the retail shop, and the retail shop would like to see a margin of, well, anywhere from 60 down to 30 or percent, but even in some businesses as high as 70% gross margin. So when you sum up this, you generally, as if you're an inexperienced entrepreneur, you would be surprised that your manufacturing cost in one country will have to be multiplied by 10 before it reaches a consumer in a different country. And that makes some thought for the price level. That means if you have the $10 cost for your manufacturing such a gadget of any kind, and you want to sell this in a different country, 10 times is maybe in some cases some kind of surprise when uh, um, you think of the customers' use of this. So this is kind of surprising from time to time. At least I have experienced that. We have mentioned the price level regarding the thrust it solves, and we have mentioned the question of quality level, whether you want to be in the exclusive uh, area of the price quality uh, section or in the low price end. That's a matter of policy, and it's a matter of the idea behind your your philosophy for your venture. One general rule could be said that it is easier to start when you are building up your production with a high price that might limit the sale, um, and then plan for the as you get experienced and you get acceptance of a product at a high price, it's easier to think of lowering the price and increasing the volume than going the other way. So my advice most often ends up with take as high price as you can in the initial stages of the initial selling of maybe even a minimum viable product, and plan on as competitors might gather around you, if you're profitable, planning on lowering the price and increasing the volume. Big corporations can use a different strategy by having an aggressive low price in order to preempt the market for themselves. But that's not the rule. That's against the rule book, I would say. Start with as high price as you can tolerate, and it is better to lose a sale because of a higher price than to lose it on the grounds of bad sales work or low service or not convincing quality of the product. It is better for you to have a reputation in the market that this is a good product but too expensive at the moment than having the opposite. That's generally my advice. There are always exceptions to the rule. So, with these remarks, we have covered the some considerations about the price. The I have not really mentioned the question of what your own costs are, because it's too primitive to use that as a ground for price setting. The market situation is a really determinator for the price, and later in the process, we're going to check whether the price you can obtain at this point in time on the basis of your customer and on the basis of the value proposal or promise to the customer, uh, then we're going to check on the profitability of the whole venture when we have determined the price and we have taken some more steps in our considerations. So that's all I'm going to say about the price at the moment. Next time, we're going to talk about another interesting question which comes into our consideration on our road towards getting a finished business idea. So stay tuned and listen to the next talk, which most probably will be published tomorrow. Bye for now. Did you stop this? Press the button. Oh.